So first off, I'm Jim Barsh with NextPax. I appreciate everybody taking a few minutes out of your day to join us for a webinar. For those of you who are still in the morning, good morning. Those in the afternoon, good afternoon. As we go through the webinar, we'll definitely want to take some questions. We'll hold those till the end to answer them though. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some things, then Alex will jump in and share about Whimstay. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. If I can get the slide to advance here, that's always a good thing. So yeah, first us, yeah, Jim, by the way, I'm out in Utah, just in the Salt Lake City area. Alex can tell a little bit more about himself in a minute, but he's out in the Bay Area. And with that, we're going to talk a little bit about, of course, the obligatory commercial about the company a little bit. I know many of you that are on our current customers, some are others I've talked to, and some people that I haven't. So appreciate you joining us. And as I go through who we are, we'll do that pretty quick. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on, some of the trends, strategies, and then who is Whimstay. And Alex will take you through everything on that. So just kind of diving in on us, we are a technology company providing connectivity in the vacation rental and hospitality space since 2006. At this point, we handle really any type of inventory from your single residence vacation rental up to hotel style. We've got about 600,000 properties on our platform. We reach a lot of different OTAs and all the major channels and many of the niche. And really driving connectivity and efficiency is really what we're all about. For those of you who are not super familiar with channel managers, I think there's some on. Basically, our job is to make your life easier and more efficient and get you in front of more shoppers. And to do that, we're connecting into the property management software and kind of moving up towards the top right. We're synchronizing all of your content, your photos, rates, availability, etc., up with various distribution channels. And then when that booking is made, we're pushing the information back into your PMS with whatever information the channel will share with us, and then also typically the credit card and payment details. Your normal content like photos and that kind of stuff, we're synchronizing typically daily. We're pulling that out of the PMS. We're then synchronizing it out. So you just manage your photos in the PMS as an example. And then for rates and availability, we basically do those either in real time for your larger channels, at the minimum once to several times a day. So it just depends on the channel and what they're able to do. So that, in short, is what a channel manager does. As far as some of the key channels, like I said, the big ones that everybody's familiar with, we have some kind of second tier or some niche channels that we're working with. And yeah, that's kind of an ongoing discussion of what's the most relevant for what you do. On the connectivity side, I think we've got roughly 26 third-party PMSs that we connect to, US, around the globe, Europe, etc. And we're constantly adding to that number. And then we have many direct integrations with proprietary systems, and I'd say it's probably double what we have on this side. So that's really what kind of about us. I'll end with the commercial, and we'll get into some of the other information at this point. So 2020, absolutely crazy year, bizarre, terrible, choose whatever adjective you'd like. I think it's pretty apt. I've been in the travel industry for 30 odd years. I thought that 9/11 would be the worst in the following years after that, but this has certainly got it beat. You know, from COVID-19 getting started, borders closing, air travel closing, shelter in place, travel stops. And it's funny, I'll say travel stops. Where I sit in Utah, I look out over the valley, and it used to be I could see typically 8 to 10 aircraft always flying into Salt Lake City. Now it's an exciting thing when I see 1 or 2. So travel has stopped. Stock market crashing, fires, protests, all of the various, hurricanes that have gone on. And I feel so bad for anybody down in the Gulf regions that have been hit again and again, not only personally, but what it's done to the businesses. So yeah, just absolutely crazy what's happened this year. And, there is a little bit of bright light, and I almost hate to say this as this is going on, but, vacation rentals in the industry that we're in has surged. We're in that small segment of the travel industry, which is doing well. And it can have variations based on when you're at, but overall, we have done okay. We've survived for right now, and things look to be continuing relatively decent. As we look back over the year, obviously things closed, we start to open a little bit. What's become very obvious is the drive markets rule. Obviously, people are not flying right now. It's gotten a little better. I think in the past few days, TSA checked in over 1 million people or screened, and that's the first time since March. So that was pretty exciting. From the traveler perspective, hotels were not considered all that safe for COVID. Many of them closed down temporarily or permanently. That single family home or vacation rental were considered very safe. National parks have been packed. Many destinations have had great summers, in some cases the best they've ever had. Others have not been so fortunate based on where they're at. Some of the people in Hawaii, Caribbean, Mexico, and urban areas, those have all been hit, very, very heavily. So, kind of looking at what's happened, what's going on as we look forward, what are some of the key things that we want to keep in mind? And we're an elite partner of Vrbo, so we were lucky to have some really nice meetings with them a few weeks ago where they shared a fair amount of data that they see at their global level. And obviously we see a lot of data at our side, but we're not as big as Vrbo, and we're not seeing as much. But the drive markets absolutely are up. And I think we know that intuitively, but they're seeing over or under 500 miles with a 15% increase. This next one, non-urban destinations, 95% of bookings going to those leisure type booking destinations, which is incredible compared to the past. Booking lead times. I'm going to talk quite a bit about this because it's indicative of some of the things going on. It also kind of leads up to why we're on a webinar with our friend here, Alex, and what we're doing with Whimstay. So that's a little bit there, 50% decrease. And then looking at those property managers which have more relaxed policies, they're seeing an 18% increase in conversion and better bookings coming from there. So some really pretty interesting data on that side. So let's first get into channels and diversification. So first thing I want to do is we're going to talk a little bit about this, but I'm also going to put up a poll. And let's see, I'm going to launch this, and whoops, I actually launched the wrong one. It helps to click on the right thing here. So first one, distribution channels. Let me launch this. And just click into the channels that you are currently using. You can pick as many or few as you'd like. So when we look at your traditional channels, obviously your brand.com, your company, your call center, your website, those are channels. And typically, for most property managers, those are your largest. But then, you're going to have empty rooms. And so you want to use some of the other channels to help fill those. Obviously, the big ones that are most used are Vrbo, Airbnb, Booking.com, and Expedia. And from a booking volume, that's what we see stacking up in the US and the Canada particularly. So then we go over to the other side and we look at what are some of the newer or non-traditional channels. So Google, it's a new channel. Is it traditional? No. What's it going to look like in 6 months to a year? That's to be seen. We are seeing good traction on Google. We've got, I think it's close to 200,000 properties on the Google Vacation Rental Program now. And so we're expecting that to probably move over time from that non-traditional or new into more of your traditional channels. Whimstay, who we're talking about today, newer channel, very niche oriented, but has a great value proposition. Home to Go, Trip.com, and Trip.com, by the way, is C-Trip. That's what's more commonly known as. And then some listing type sites, Emerald, Coast by Owner, different ones like that. So just kind of looking at the polling really quick. Yep, Vrbo, Airbnb, Booking.com, Expedia, and then these others which I've listed out. A couple people on the listing sites, but that's about it. So interesting that we don't have anyone else on some of these others. All right, so we're going to end that poll real quick. Okay, let's start diving into some data. And again, we're looking at more of the last minute type stuff, the travel patterns, buying patterns. And forgive my voice, everybody. I'm kind of getting over a little bit of a cold here. I do not have COVID, so we're safe here. I actually got tested this week, so I know I could. So crazy times. So looking at the advanced booking pace for 2020, this is just kind of going March through October, and this is broken out by channel. And in general, what we saw, and it's kind of interesting, is a higher booking pace in April, We saw obviously everything tank in March, and tens of thousands of bookings canceling everywhere. And then in May, things get a little better. They start to open up in June, and we start to see travel. And kind of looking at your averages, and this is everything average for that channel during that specific month. And you're seeing Expedia down here at the bottom with the lowest, booking pace. Kind of move up to Booking.com, they're in there. And then you've got Vrbo kind of in this upper range. And then I'm not sure why TripAdvisor, they're bouncing all over, but they're kind of out there. And in today's environment, what we see, TripAdvisor is a good research site, but we don't see a lot of bookings come out of there really any longer. So you're also looking at smaller numbers, smaller percentages and things like that. So what does this compare to year over year? So same time period, same channels. And the center line here is your flat, above or below. So again, April was interesting. We saw an increase actually in the booking pace for a couple channels, but then everybody else is below the line. Look at this in May, down 56% at the most, 28% at the least. We start to come back up, and things are looking a little bit better as we go through this, but they're still overall for the major channels running below last year, 30% plus or minus. October, we're getting back to kind of where things were at last year, but still running, quite a bit different. And so a little bit interesting here in what we're seeing year over year changes. So obviously that compression, we all intuitively know that. We may have seen data. Hopefully you're looking at your own PMS reporting to see what's going on there. So what has happened to the booking value? This is another one that we really look at. So on the left axis, you've got the dollars. On the right axis, you've got the percent change. And this really surprised me quite a bit. And we saw this universally, really all destinations. And so in general, we saw anywhere from about a 20 to, on the high 30 is about 38% increase in average booking value. So going from what was regularly under $1,000, that 900, 950 range, really moving upwards. So the first question is why? Well, is it due to longer lengths of stay? A little bit, but not as much as you would think. Is it due to people being able to hold their prices and not have to discount? I think that's a big factor. Is it that people were able to increase price? A little bit. So it's a combination of factors, but I thought this was a very, very interesting one. And particularly if you're able to fill your rooms, if your occupancy is up there, you don't need to discount, you don't need to do certain things, but you reach a point where you may need to. And this is something Alex will talk a little bit about more here in a minute. So this then brings me into, what are people booking? What is your strategy? And where are you pricing for? What channels are you looking at? As I showed earlier, your Airbnb and your Vrbo, those are definitely up there in the advanced booking pace, which is good. But then what are those which are closer in? And actually, I was really surprised when I looked at this data. And this is across tens of thousands of bookings, US only. Actually, I have Canada in there as well. Looking at April through August, okay? So if you look at those bookings under 7 days, 22%, that's incredible that we had that many bookings happening that quickly. And you kind of go down the scale, so you're saying, all right, within 2 weeks, 37% of bookings happen, and then you go on up to where you say under 28 days, or basically within a month, roughly 60% of bookings are coming in. And then after that, 40% outside of it. So of course, that starts to ask questions. What channels am I tapping into? What are the rules I have in place? What am I looking at here to try and capture that last minute booking? Because you're further out, let's get as much of that as we can. Let's layer in those good levels. Then as we get in closer, what are we doing? How's that going to impact things? So then I want to look a little bit of, okay, how much variation and what are those, what's changing on a destination basis? So I took some states, and number one, Florida, bar none, was the highest booking state that we had this year in the US. And you narrow it in, obviously it's going to be the Panhandle area, it's Panama City, a little bit over on the East Coast. But as you look at that pattern, again, full year, 2019 in blue, red 2020, right axis percent change. Left axis is the number of days. So that spike in April where things got really weird, and then it drops down, and in Florida continued to decrease from a percentage basis to where you're looking at on average 25 to 30% below last year from the average number of days for booking. Georgia, a little bit of a similar pattern. They're down about the same. 1 month here in May, really down. So a little bit of geography. If we look at the Carolinas, very different. And I haven't had time to dig in and understand this completely, but you look at South Carolina, similar pattern, below, and then you start to see this big increase to where they crossed over in the late September, October timeframe into positive territory with their average booking window. Very curious. Whereas you look at North Carolina, and just the opposite, a little bit high, drops down, but not too bad from last year. And then it really started to change and go down here. So very different patterns. Take a look at Utah. I had to do that, my home state. We saw again that big blip increase, decreasing, hanging around that 30-35% area. Now we're starting to climb out of that. My opinion here is you have your fall travelers, you got your skiers who are starting to look at things, winter vacations. And this is really the strongest I've seen in any of the markets that we looked at. Tennessee, a little bit different, but they did hang in here at a more similar rate to last year, dropping off here in the fall a little bit. And so just a quick snapshot of a few of the top states that we looked at. Some of the others that did really well, Colorado, Idaho, kind of looking at some of those national parks, Wyoming, Montana. Back east, kind of hit them, the Carolinas, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee. Those did quite well as well. Going into some of the other states, not so well. That's why we didn't dive into them there. So looking considerations at this point, looking forward, and a lot of these are my opinion. So you can differ with me, but I think with COVID-19, even if a vaccine comes out in the next couple months, it's going to be with us for quite a while. My opinion is mostly through 2021 into 2022. I know many of the analysts out there are saying travel really won't get back to normal until 2023. Again, bad news as an overall society, business world, from the vacation rental world. This could be that pivotal moment, I think, where we really start to exceed where people are traveling from the type of accommodations. We know it's a little bit overused. COVID-19 fatigue is there. So we're seeing people who are starting to travel. We mentioned air travel is starting to grow. People are coming back. More people I know are going to some of these drive markets. And so I think we will see some increases just because people are going to continue with life. Pacing is hard to predict. No crystal balls out there. Unemployment, we're still seeing big increases each month. So I think we're going to struggle there. Where are people going to buy? What are they going to buy? And what are those key decision factors going into it? So let's take a look at some of those. First thing, what is the shopper behavior? What are their practices? What are they thinking when they go to buy? Are they going to find your website and book directly? Obviously, that's something that as property managers, everybody wants, but also where are they going to feel comfortable booking? And what are they going to be looking for? So, take our major channels, Airbnb. I don't know if I want to call them our friends, but people loved them. They refunded all their money, no questions asked when COVID hit. Zero consideration for the property managers. And so, you may have people which are attracted to a channel because of reasons like that. And so really trying to predict where they're going to be and getting in front of them. Obviously, we just showed a lot of data. They're booking closer into departure due to uncertainty and a very, variety of reasons. So really looking at what is that behavior, what are channels going to be, which will help you be there because you do want to be where people are shopping. Safety. So your cleaning processes, your COVID practices, and stay gaps, huge discussion points throughout the industry, from channels to VRMA to tons of webinars on it. What we have learned in talking to the major channels is that roughly 70 to 80% of people take into consideration now, what are your cleaning practices when they are buying? And so there's roughly a dozen items that are primarily represented on the channels as to what your cleaning practices are. Make sure you're leveraging what you're doing there and you're letting shoppers know, whether it's your website, a channel, wherever it is. Stay gaps, some places are mandating that, others are not. So that's really kind of a legal and practice thing, but there are people looking for that gap as well before going in. Next thing, really on the flexibility side, your rules, cancellation policies. Huge, huge, huge. You know, penalties, strict penalties kill conversion. You want to have the easiest path to booking as possible, the least amount of friction. And the more penalties you put in, the more items that will cause a little bit of fear or hesitation from that shopper, you want to get rid of. You just simply pull them out or make them a lot easier to work with. And, you know, when I look at it at this point, we still have the majority of people on our system with relatively strict policies. I would say most have roughly 100% cancellation penalty under 30 days. Well, if you look at the booking trends, in some cases that's fine. If I'm booking 4 days out, I'm going to expect that. But if we want to move that booking trend, what do you need to do to help with that? What's happening with your minimum length of stay? If you've got somebody booking at a week for a 3-day stay, you know, 7 days out, and you're requiring a 4-night minimum or a 7-night, you're probably not even going to show up on the shelf. You're not going to get booked. And so looking at what is the shopping behavior, what's going on based on time of year with that length of stay. Another area that we have seen when changed can have huge impacts on bookings and conversion. The other one is on advanced booking offset. Again, I took a look. Right now we sit mostly at about 2.5 to 3 days. So again, if you've got those people shopping very close in, and you're not allowing any bookings within a few days of arrival, you could be, you know, eliminating a whole segment of people there. So, you know, this is pretty quick. I've been going fast, and unfortunately, my voice is not doing too well today. So I apologize for that again. But as we look at things, they've really changed. Behaviors have changed. The booking paces, the length of stays have changed. The world is different today. And I know you've heard this in many webinars and other folks out there. So this just reinforces it. And looking at, you know, thousands and thousands of bookings, this is what we've seen. So obviously, as we try to focus on partners, which can bring different niches and different strategies and different value to you, one that we started working with, it's been about 9 or 10 months ago. We've seen great progression with them, good adoption, and bookings coming along is Whimstay. So that I am going to turn it over to Alex before my voice gives all the way out. So Alex, take it away.
Jim, thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? You can hear me okay, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Fine.
Okay, your voice sounds fabulous, by the way. Yeah, thank you. So Jim, really appreciate it. So happy to be here, you guys. Again, my name is Alex Aliotto. I am the head of sales, VP of sales at Whimstay. We are based, as Jim had previously mentioned, out of San Francisco, right? As evidenced by my green juice. I am a walking cliche. So a couple of things in there that Jim had mentioned that I'm going to also mention. And so I think one of the things that we want to look at is this is not necessarily repetition, but emphasis, because a lot of some of these things that are happening right now are really sort of changing the scope of how our industry is going to start to really, in my opinion, really thrive and take off. So let me kind of get started a little bit, and I'm going to give you the lowdown on what we're doing. And then I'm going to take a similar approach to what Jim did, but I'm going to do it in a little bit of a different way. And then we'll just see where we end up, right? So Whimstay, who are we? What is our value prop? So on the property manager side, we are a new sales channel that is dedicated to selling your unsold, expiring gap nights last minute. Very simple, really easy. For the traveler side, for the spontaneous travelers, we are a leading marketplace to book last minute vacation rental deals. If I'm willing to be spontaneous, I know I can go to Whimstay and get an awesome vacation rental at a good price, which will allow you guys to liquidate your expiring inventory. It's kind of a win-win. Go ahead, Jim. Our values, our mission. So for property managers, by property managers. We were created, our co-founder is a property manager, owned properties, put his properties on Airbnb and Vrbo. And to him, there was a unique situation. And that was, he was sitting in the middle of this, he had him homes in Tahoe. He was sitting in the middle of a shoulder season, staring down the barrel of a 38% occupancy rate, and thought, it's got to be better than this. So what is an option? What's something that I can do in order to raise that occupancy, particularly in shoulder season, fill out my gap nights? And so he came up with Whimstay. And And so everything that we're doing, we want to make sure we are doing this for the property manager. So accompanying that, we only work with professional property management companies. That's a big deal for us. That's important to us as we sort of move forward in this kind of post-COVID world with cleanliness and the importance of good communication, right? So working with professional property management companies is not only important to us, it's a mandate, it's mandatory. So um, uh, increase occupancy and then create a market and shoulder season. So obviously create increase occupancy. It makes sense, right? What we want is to be found money for a property manager, days that otherwise would go unsold, and then create a market and shoulder season. So we're starting to see something so interesting, and that is, this idea of, and I'll get into this a little bit later, right? Work from home, just not yours, right? It's a kind of a phrase that we bandy about our offices here. And that's something that we are really aiming to do. If we can take you guys from that 38% to 70, 68, 70, 75% during shoulder season, Dan, we're feeling really good about things. So, and we're feeling like we're helping you guys out a lot. So that's an important thing for us. And then to give yourself your very own Nordstrom rack. I don't know if this is too regional. I think, I don't know how many people on this call have Nordstrom, but Nordstrom Rack is basically a place where you go to Nordstrom, it's a department store. I look for a shirt. If Nordstrom has a shirt that's gone out of season, what they'll do is they'll put it in Nordstrom Rack. And then the customer knows they can go to Nordstrom Rack and get this awesome shirt at a good price that otherwise Nordstrom Rack Nordstrom would have to throw away completely, right? So it's just an opportunity for them to find money. Eric Nordstrom, that's his real name, discussed in a earnings call last year that Nordstrom Rack has doubled their profits. So we want to be able to be your Nordstrom Rack, your place where days that otherwise are just going to go, well, we're going to make some money for you guys. So that's what we want to be. Go ahead, Jim. Why us? Why now? And when I say us, I mean our industry. I don't mean Whimstay. I mean our industry in general. And again, this is sort of reflecting back on some of the things that Jim had talked about. But again, this is emphasizing something that's important right now. Why us and why now? Why is our industry, number one, not only doing incredibly well, but poised. If you're not feeling it yet, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, you're going to start to, okay? And why? Well, the first thing is drivable. So the vacations that families and people are taking right now, they're going to be drivables. That benefits the vacation rental industry. Again, work from home, just not yours. The work from home situation is not a temporary one. This is one that we think is long-term. And there's a lot of virtual schooling, right? So a lot of these sort of new paradigms that's set up by COVID itself, this is going to hugely benefit the vacation rental industry. We're seeing people all the time. We're seeing travelers that, are living in San Francisco and they want to go to Bodega Bay, right? Why? Because they just feel like working out of Bodega Bay for 5 days because they can. That's going to be a huge deal. They're not doing that at a hotel. Looking for value. If I am a family, right, and I'm a family of 5, and I want to go take a vacation down to San Diego, does it make sense that I'm getting a hotel room at 2 or 3 hotel rooms at $300 a piece, or am I getting a 5 or 4 bedroom at $300 a night? Just makes more sense. Last minute assessment. So I think that people are still sort of gauging what's going on and how things are going. Last minute assessment, last minute always is to benefit our industry. Mountains, lakes, and beaches, oh my, see what I did there? As Jim had mentioned, the non-urban centers are feeling it a little bit right now. That's not gonna last, right? But that's what's happening right now. Again, mountains, lakes, and beaches, these types of things, this benefits the vacation rental industry, and then social distancing. It just makes sense, right? You're not sharing a pool, you're not sharing a lobby. It's your own home and your own kitchen. It just makes more sense. So a couple of slides here. I want to do something with you guys. Now, I'm sure you guys all know Simon Lehman. If you don't, he's an incredibly important thought leader in our industry, and he is the CEO of AJL Consulting, and a fascinating and interesting and really cool guy. And he's got the heartbeat of this industry down. So he gave an interview recently that is really great, highly recommended. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple of excerpts from that interview in the next few slides and sort of talk about those a little bit, because he says some really cool stuff in here. So let's take this first one here. Vacation rental industry has addressed only 30% of the travelers. There is 70% out there choosing a hotel or vacation rental that have not yet rented. We still have massive growth potential. Now, this is an important part here, I think. This industry needs to professionalize to address the other 70% of the customers because they are expecting hotel-like services. And then he says later on, we are in the fastest growing travel vertical there is. Take that in because it's important and it's awesome. Next slide, Jim. So what does that tell us? Okay. First of all, 70%, right? That's market share. So there is a 70% market share out there that has not been captured, and it is our job to capture it. And I think that we're going to. So what are some of these things that we know? We're in the second inning of this thing. Like, if you think that this industry is in its infancy right now, right? So we have an incredible amount of growth potential facing us right now. And that's an awesome, awesome thing. So what's the second thing? New travelers. That 70% is about capturing new travelers. And that's something I think that we're going to start to do en masse as we move forward. And then let hotels do the heavy lifting while we maintain our values. I'm going to tell you a quick little story right now. So our co-founder, Ben Jemshahi, in his previous life, is a bit of a serial entrepreneur, very, very successful serial entrepreneur. And he had a restaurant in his previous life, as it were. And it was a Mediterranean restaurant that he opened up in a small little city in California. And the restaurant did incredibly well. And so immediately, being an entrepreneur, he wanted to expand the restaurant to multiple restaurants and to franchise it. And so he did something I think is so cool. He drove around California and he found McDonald's, that had an empty space, a space to lease next to or kitty corner or across the street from. And here's the reason why. And then what he did was he found 2 or 3 of those and he put his second and third and fourth restaurants in those empty spaces. And here's the reason why. Is because he understood something. He understood that McDonald's pays consultants and analysts and data heads and bean counters and pays millions, tens of millions of dollars to these people to analyze and figure out where is the best place for us to put our location, what has the best foot traffic, where it's going to get the best eyes on it. And so what Ben did was he took their assessment, knowing they spent a lot of money on it, and he kind of, to a certain extent, used it, right, to his advantage, knowing that McDonald's isn't randomly going to put restaurants in wherever they're going to do it. The result was those restaurants did incredibly well, and he ended up opening about 10 of them. Now, what's my point here? We can be doing the exact same thing. So hotels, Marriott, Hilton, Four Seasons, Accor, Sofitel, all these major multi-million dollar hotels all of them have done this. They have all signed up for Hotel Tonight. All of them use Hotel Tonight. What is Hotel Tonight? Hotel Tonight is the exact equivalent of what Whimstay is doing, but in the hotel industry, right? And what's the reason that they are all doing that? Because they are all seeing the profitability, the revenue benefit of adding their hotels to a last minute channel. So in this particular instance, I think that in terms of Whimstay, we can kind of follow the lead of these major hotels who put on, whatever Ernst & Young or whoever the heck they use. Let them figure all those types of things out, and we can kind of piggyback on those while maintaining our values as an awesome industry that's hospitable and very personal still. Go ahead, Jim. Next slide. Here's my the next Simon quote. In vacation rentals, this is a great one. In vacation rentals 10 years ago, we have booking windows of 9 months or even more. Now it's down to 60, 30, and then super spontaneous, even lower. It changes distribution. So as a property manager, you want to be on as many different platforms with many different personas to balance your risk in terms of early and late booking windows. And here's the important part. You want to balance that instead of sitting on one demand channel. Go ahead, Jim. Now, I know I thought it was interesting, right? In that, in the little poll that Jim did there, that everybody is on these major ones, Vrbo and Airbnb, right? But again, this is about diversification, okay? So let's kind of break down a little bit of what he said. First of all, last minute is here to stay, right? I love those graphs that you were showing. They were so interesting. And North Carolina was interesting. I've got a theory on that, but we'll talk about that for a later day. But last minute is here to stay. It's what the new traveler is doing, right? And this again is about collecting that new traveler, collecting that 70% that Simon was talking about previously. These next three bullets, they're all kind of saying the same thing, but I've sort of worded them differently, but you'll kind of see where I am. Diversify, right? And this is what Simon said. You got to diversify. You've got to put yourself out there to as many different channels as you possibly can to capture as many different travelers, because you just don't know where your travelers are going to come from. So why guess, right? Why guess? Put it out there. 90-day window versus the 5-day window. You're going to have two types of travelers, right? You're going to have that 90-day traveler. And what are they going to do? They're going to pay a premium. And they're going to pay a premium. Why? Because, they've planned in advance. There's easier cancellation, right? There's a lot of more options to it, right? And then you've got that 5-day window. And by the way, that 90-day window, they're paying at a premium price for that. Then you've got the 5-day window traveler. Okay. Well, not quite as many options. Maybe there is no cancellation. For us, there is, right? No cancellation. Less options. You got to be a little more spontaneous. As a result of that, you're going to pay less of a price, a cheaper price, a discount, right? So you got to cover for both. You got to cover that 90-day window. You got to cover that 5-day window. This is going to increase occupancy, and this is going to increase profitability. Negate risk, cover all your bases. Kind of what I said before, right? Why allow yourself the opportunity to not capture somebody who's out there? Cover as many bases as you possibly can. And then this is the final quote. So the key KPI, the key performance indicator for any property manager is, what is my occupancy? Go ahead, Jim. And the takeaway on that is bookings, bookings, and more bookings. And that's it, right? That's it. All right, let's keep going. So now let's look back on everything that we just talked about on all three of those little sections there. Does Whimstay check all these boxes? And chances are I probably wouldn't put this here if it didn't. The hotel model, right? The hotelization that we, in order to capture that 70% of market share, we are doing the same exact thing that Hotel Tonight is doing. And by the way, Whimstay is the only one in the space, in the vacation rental space, doing this. New travelers, boom, that's it. We're seeing a lot of our bookings are new travelers to the vacation rental world. Last minute, obviously, that's our value prop. So pricing plus distribution equals profitability. So this is sort of a little bend on that diversification thing. This is actually an interesting one. I just want to take a second on. Revenue management is a big deal in our industry, and it's been particularly popular as of late. And I think that one of the things that people talk about a lot when they're talking revenue management is the pricing, and as evidenced by these yielding companies that are doing great and doing beyond pricing and all these guys, right? So, and I don't know, 80 to 90% of the property managers I talk to have some type of price yielding. So that pricing is awesome and hugely, hugely important. But if you're just having this discount, this yielded price, but you're not distributing it out to your travelers, it's kind of like you've got this gorgeous 25-carat diamond that's buried 55 feet underground, right? It's the greatest. It could be the single greatest discount of all time that took into consideration the market and all these different things. But if nobody is seeing it, right? A tree falls in the forest, as they say. So that pricing is great, right? But you got to add the distribution. And that's what we are doing. We are driving people to this, to your discount and your last minute option. And that's what's going to equal profitability. And then raising your occupancy. I mean, I guess it just goes without saying, right? These are days that otherwise are going to go unsold. So let's sell days that otherwise are going to go unsold, right? Sounds good. Okay, next. What some of our PMs have been saying. So we keep a sort of a pretty diligent tab on this. I think it's important for us to be able to be communicating with our PMs, talk about some of the things they like and what are we doing that they like. And then if they really want something, then we're in a position where we want to be able to do it ourselves for you guys, right? To adapt. So Here are some of the things that they've been saying. Fraud protection done right. So I will tell you this right now, what we do for fraud protection, we feel incredibly confident. We have our payment processor is Stripe. What we do with them is we use their most aggressive form of fraud protection, and so their most stringent form of fraud protection, and we have done incredibly well. On top of that, we do to avoid any type of computer error. We've got our account management team calling every single traveler. If we don't feel like it's right, even if it gets past Stripe and we don't feel like it's right, and we're going to do the right thing. We're going to talk to the property manager and we're going to find out what's going on. And make sure that you guys aren't having to deal with any type of fraud. COVID cancellations. So during COVID, we had a lot of what we did mostly for all those things. We didn't do any refunds, right? One of them was, and I'll tell you about that in a second, but mostly what we did is just reschedule people for later days. There was one instance where there was a cancellation that we ended up having to give, but what we did was we went straight to the property manager. We had a conversation with them. We made sure everything was kosher with them, and we set up a situation with them. And so the whole point of that is we want to make sure that we are for you guys. It's important to us that we know that, because you know what, in the landscape right now, we're seeing some of these big channels that just aren't. And so it's massively important to us. And that goes back to us for property managers by property managers. MOR guarantees. So merchant of record. So Whimstay is the merchant of record. Couple of things that we want to talk about here. First thing is this: it's not an issue because it's short term, right? So the most that we would ever keep your funds is a few days, right? Because we're short term. So or we're last minute, right? So it's not something that we would be keeping these funds for a long period of time. But in addition to that, and this is important, our funds never commingle. So the funds that come in from a traveler will never commingle with Whimstay's personal expense funds. So never the twain shall meet, or church and state, whatever you want to say. So we keep that, we keep those apart, and we will always be wiring you guys 24 hours after check-in. And then that's the quickest onboard I've ever had. So our process is so easy. It's click it on. In the case, at NextPax, it is have Jim enable you guys, and then it is a 20-minute onboarding process, and then you're live. So it is a 22-minute process in total. So that's the quickest onboard I've ever had. Is our head of account management, Jen, seems to hear that a lot, and we're proud of that. So, and that is by design. Go ahead, Jim. Okay, so just so you guys know, this is what the traveler is going to be looking at. We live in the Amazon age, right? We live in an age where if you want to buy a stereo, then you basically just press buy now, and that thing is going to end up on your doorstep in a day, right? Stereo. Does people even buy stereos anymore? And so our process is a 2 to 3 step process. If you put your credit card in, it's a 2-step process. So your traveler is going to love that, right? That's the age that we're in. So, okay, next one. And this is what you guys are going to see. So there's the traveler email confirmation on the left and the host email confirmation on the right. You'll notice that the traveler is going to receive all of your information. Then you notice on the right what you guys are going to receive. So we're not going to scramble and give you nonsense and fake weird names and non-emails. We're going to give you all of the information. That's going to happen in real time at the booking, right? So as soon as that booking happens, you're going to receive that email. And by the way, your booking's going to come through the same way it would with any other, with Verbo or Booking, right? It's going to come through your PMS or your channel manager in the exact same way that it normally would. You're going to receive this email, and then you start your communication process as you normally would. Next. Summary. Whimstay makes you more money by, so booking your unsold gap nights last minute, right? Zero marketing costs, so it doesn't take anything to add, $0, no commitment, anything like that, no hidden fees, while maintaining premium pricing at other sites. I mean, we've got this lovely fantasy, and I want this to be the case. You guys can price your premium price in Airbnb, Verbo, Booking, wherever you website, whatever you want. all over the place. Let us take care of that last minute discount. If someone wants to book last minute on Verbo and pay at a premium price, bravo, lovely, right? That would be great. So, and then Whimstay has achieved significant early traction. So we got over 25,000 properties already. That includes major property managers, V-Trips, Steve Milo's V-Trips, I'm sure you guys are aware of, and Turnkey. So the major guys are seeing what we're doing, getting it, and thinking it's something that they have to start doing. And a lot of those more are coming. So, so if it gives you any sort of, it's sort of what we talked about before, right? Let the big companies do all the heavy lifting, and then piggyback on it and start to benefit. Okay, next. Next steps. Activate your properties on NextPax. Super easy, obviously. Email me, email Jim. I will give you guys, they'll get you enabled. And then at that point, Jennifer, your account management team will email you to schedule a 20-minute onboard call, and then we'll take your properties live. That's it. Contact. That is my name, Alex Aliotto, VP of Sales. Alex at Whimstay. We made it easy. There is my phone number if you would like it. Feel free to take a snapshot. Here's my green juice. I am all done. Thank you very much, Jim. Looks like we have a couple questions.
Yeah, so thanks, Alex, for covering all of that. It's always good to hear a little bit more about what is going on with some of the newer channels.
And thank you, by the way, Jim, for having us. And it's always a pleasure to hang out with you, man. You are one of the good guys, no question about it.
Always good to hear. So yeah, question-wise, looks like we have one. I think this is one maybe, Alex, you could follow up directly with.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, you've been live in NextPax, or do you mean live on Whimstay, Terry, or NextPax?
I think it's been live on you guys, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Terry, I'm not sure. Yeah, yeah, so good question. Don't know. Terry, if I'm correct, you're in Anna Maria Island. Is that right? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. And I'll tell you what we can do, though, is if you want to have a conversation, I think one thing that we can do, which would be great, is call me up. And thank you. I remember you, Terry. So, but we can get on a call and let's talk about it, right? Let's talk about ways that we can do it. It could be anything. It could be, I think that one of the things that we're seeing in Florida is higher discounts right now are getting sold, particularly in places like Holmes Beach and Anna Maria Island. And, but let's do it. Let's talk. So we'll take a look at what your discount is. We'll talk to Jen. She's your account manager. She's got some insight too, and we can take a look.
Okay, I think that's about it. I know we went over 45 minutes a little bit, but everybody, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Hope you found this to be useful. And you've got Alex's information, pretty easy, alex@whimstay.com. You can reach out to us at support.us@NextPax, or me, I'm pretty easy too, jim@nextpax.com. So,
and I'll probably be reaching out to everyone, as you know, that's how I do.
Okay, anything else, Alex? Otherwise, we'll say
I'm
bye.
good. I'm good.
All right, everybody have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for showing up. Thank you, Jim.